right. All right. Happy Monday, everyone. Today is Monday, January 13th, 2025. We're going to call this meeting of the Cumberland Town Council meeting to order. Kaboom. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the December 23rd, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Any one abstention. That's five yes and one abstention. Thank you very much. All right, before we get into our manager's report, I understand from Councilor Eads we have some special guests here this evening that we would like to honor. So Mike, over to you to tee this up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I love doing this stuff, and this is really kind of special tonight. We're going to honor Coach Mike Andresen tonight. I've known the Andresen family my whole life. I think Kathy could probably deduct me. When I was in high school, I ate over her house so many times. So without further ado, I'd like to, if I could read this. It is my pleasure, Madam Chair, to introduce the National Coach of the Year for large public schools. And he was nominated by the Maine Soccer Coaches Association and was selected by the United Soccer Coaches, which is the world's largest soccer coaches association. Mike Andresen is the current boys varsity coach, soccer coach, and the girls varsity basketball coach for Greeley High School. Mike has been coaching soccer for well over 30 years at both Greeley and Gray New Gloucester. Coach Andresen has amassed over 300 victories and won 5 state titles. In addition to this national award, Mike is a 3-time Maine Soccer Coach of the Year recipient. His youth soccer teams have won 4 state champions. Coach Andresen is also a soccer referee at both the FIFA and National Federation level. He has officiated at over 20 state championship games. As a basketball coach, Mike has won over 200 games at the high school level. His teams have won 2 state championships, and his AAU teams have collected 3 championships at the state level. In 2015, he was named the Maine Class B Coach of the Year. He is also a former high school basketball referee. Mike grew up in Cumberland, is a 1980 graduate of Greeley High School. The son of Bob and Kathy Andresen, Mike and his 4 brothers grew up in Cumberland. All of the Andresen boys were outstanding student athletes, and it seemed that any time during the 70s and 80s, any school team roster, soccer, basketball, baseball, had a player on it with the last name Andresen. Mike and his wife Kim reside in North Yarmouth. They are the proud parents of 3 grown children and 2 grandchildren. Mike, if you step up for a second, up to the podium. Yes, please, Mike. Mike, on behalf of Chairwoman Filson, the citizens of Cumberland, and the entire town council, we are proud to recognize you as the 2024 recipient of the United Soccer Coaches Coach of the Year for the nation. Congratulations, Mike. You want to give a little speech,
Am I
Mike?
supposed to say words? It's weird because between you, Copp, and Vale here, I have some stories, but I think if you didn't say any of them. Ronnie and I graduated together. He just looks a lot younger than I do. But no, it's been a great ride. It's been a great ride, and being a Greeley grad and playing for Coach Hutchins back in the 70s, and then taking over his program in the 90s and coaching the girls program as well. I won a state title there too. So, not that we're tooting horns here tonight. Yes, we are. But it's just nice to, to come home to see folks that we grew up with that are still involved with the local political scene, to see people in town. So it's just nice to see the longstanding residents and the new residents as well. And so my heart bleeds maroon. It's really nice. Sorry, Matt. I know Matt and I go back to our Greater Gloucester days, but it really does, and it's great to see that the teams, just not soccer, but also the football team this year, the girls soccer team, and I do believe this year that by the MPI rules, that Greeley High School is now the #1 school in the state of Maine for state championships. Wow. Being 2 ahead of Cape Elizabeth right now. But nobody's keeping score, but we are up to. Town council, I wanted to thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's great to be recognized, although it's really about the kids. It's not about me. I happen to have a great group of kids every year I do. This year just happened to be a team that kind of refused to lose. They really were all in, and it was one of those, you talk about once in a lifetime. Every year I have a once in a lifetime, because you like to say that every team is very, very special. This year they went over the top and did a nice thing. So it's not really much I did. It's more so what they did, and I just happened to be there for the ride. So again, thank you. I appreciate it.
Mike, stay at the podium. I'm sure Mr. Manager and a couple of councilors want to say something to you as well. So.
Of course, all
I
right.
just have a question. Did you get your coaching skills from your dad or your mom?
A little bit of both. They say, in terms of just when you're coaching, I guess one of my things is you can't be everything to everybody. You have to have, you have to stand for the non-negotiables. As you know from my dad, there were a few non-negotiables in the household. And luckily, when he didn't give us any negotiables, and Mom would maybe bend a little bit. Not much, but a little bit, but a little bit from the both of them. And, yeah, I mean, you get, I think anybody knows that you get the most of when you're growing up things from your parents. And really, Dad instilled that in me, the thing to not back down, to always be who you are. And if people necessarily aren't in agreement with that, then we can agree to disagree type of thing. And so it's pretty good. Yeah, I think of him every day. I think of Dad every day. Dad passed several years back, and but he lives. I think in not only myself, but also in all my 4 other brothers.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mike. It's really nice to see a continuation of a Cumberland family with roots here continue on with your kids in the school system. Your mom's still here. When I was a young man, there was a force to be reckoned with. It was called Trooper Andration and Trooper White. And I was the recipient of the Blue Light Special on more than one occasion. But anyways, when I was between my junior and senior year of high school, I worked for George Small, and we were building a house on Lawn Avenue, and your mother you guys lived right next door, and this was long before the days of portable toilets or anything like that, and so we made the knock on the door on more than one occasion, and the gratitude was well accepted. And then later on, I went to service, and then when I got out of the service, I wanted to go to Maine Maritime Academy. And back in those days, it was a little more, there was some formalities that probably don't exist today, but you had to have 3 recommendations from people of some stature.
Yep.
And your father was the first guy that I went to see and asked him for a letter of recommendation, and I'm sure that that was one of the toughest letters he ever had to write.
I'm sure my mother wrote it.
And then the second one was Pete Smith, who I know you know well, and then the third one was from Governor Ken Curtis. So that was all 3 of those people probably cringed if the thought of writing me a letter of recommendation. But anyways, fond memories of your family and the longevity here. It's just telling that people who make a commitment in their community, it doesn't go unrecognized. So thank you. Thank you.
Matt?
Thanks, Councilor Eads. Mike, just want to say congratulations. I couldn't think of a person that more epitomizes the award by far. I've had the good fortune either refereeing with you or for you, as well as watching you from the sidelines. And the epitome of coach and teacher is summarized in Mike Andresen. I look at what you do and the message you give your students and your players transcends sports. You're forming and shaping lives, and always for the better. And I've seen kids run through brick walls for you, and I had a lot of pleasure watching this year's Greeley team. And yeah, I'm a GNG grad, but I'm rooting for Greeley. I work here now, and I couldn't be happier for it because I'd love to see the program succeed, but I really love to see you succeed. And it's from a lifetime of hard work. And congrats, really, really great. Glad to know you.
Thanks, Matt. You know, it's funny because the stories about my dad and behind Dad was always Mom. In fact, Mom's here tonight. And I echo that just with my own wife, Kim. I'm running off to a basketball practice tonight until 9:30 because I coach the girls team at Greater Gloucester. I coached my grandson today. We had practice, and it's just, and I know a lot of people that wouldn't stand for that, and a lot of marriages that may crumble at the sight of that. You know, if my mom's not the best person in the world, then I marry the best person in the world, Kim, and she's been great, and I wanted to give her a little bit of kudos because I don't want to say she never complains because sometimes just a little bit, but for the most part, the hours I'm gone and whatnot, she does a great job, and she takes a part of it. At the soccer game, she runs a snack bar. She does my scorebook in basketball. It's a good way to keep an eye on me, I guess. But she jumps in with both feet. It's really, really good stuff. So my success, I mean, it's easy to stand up here and take a lot of it, but it's really the work behind you. So thanks, honey.
Mike, thanks you, Kim, family. Kathy, it's good to see you. We really appreciate you coming in tonight.
Appreciate it.
Madam Chair?
Thanks,
all
folks.
yours.
Oh.
Congratulations to you all. I'm not going to ask you your feelings on Ted Lasso tonight, but maybe at some point, like, we'd just love to know what you think. But congratulations to
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule, I'm sure, to recognize somebody like me. So, good stuff. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for organizing that, Mike.
You've got it.
All right. Next up, we have our manager's report. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a bit of a report this evening. As
Hear it.
Council received it earlier, I'd like to provide a solid update to you from the operational side, and I'm happy to share that with the public as well this evening. First, it's important to provide an update on our departmental activities, ongoing projects, important upcoming events as we progress through fiscal year 2025. So as we enter the 26 fiscal year budget cycle, all departments are currently working on their individual departmental budgets while reviewing current revenues and expenditures and making sure the process is critical and crucial for aligning our financial resources with our strategic goals. On a finance update, I'm happy to report Helene DiBartolomeo is as good as advertised. She's 3 weeks in, and I couldn't be happier to have her on board with us as our finance director. She's actively involved in the fiscal year 2024 financial audit and working with our auditors to get that wrapped up, as well as with the turn of the calendar, W-2s and 1099s for annual reporting are being generated. So we're trying to get those out the door. On Public Works, winter maintenance is underway on conservation parcels, and current weather conditions allow for maintenance on invasive species, and this is guided by the Lands and Conservation Commission. So we're grateful for them and taking advantage of the, at least at this point, reduced snow winter, so we're trying to take advantage of that time. The team did respond to a recent storm conditions over the weekend, which changed quickly and got greasy very quickly, and they were out and responding. On project updates, the Rusty Lantern project, as you may see if you get to the west side, is in full construction and with an expected opening between Memorial Day and July 4th. So best case scenario, Memorial Day, less than best case scenario, July 4th. So the water line extension work is also beginning on the west side for the Mineral Springs development. Pilot hole drilling has commenced, and initial results are promising. So if you were over that way today, you'll notice that they had the fast lane closed on the turnpike for a good period of time where they were working in that area. Under tax assessments, Clinton Sweat, our tax assessor, is preparing for the upcoming equalization and revaluation project. A workshop is anticipated in the spring with the council, where he's looking to outline the process and timelines and begin the whole public relations rollout and public notification. So folks, we don't want anybody to be surprised. We want to have as much information as we can out there as we go along. The planning board will review proposed ordinance changes that were referred from the council at the last meeting. And we anticipate that those will be coming back with recommendations for the January 27th council meeting. That board is also having an annual legal training prior to their meeting with the town's attorney, similar to what the council did this past summer on right to know and freedom of access training. It's critical for our boards to, especially your quasi-judicial boards, to have that. The Comprehensive Plan Committee will have their first meeting on the January 23rd at 6 p.m. Legal training on right to know and right of access will also be included in that first meeting with the town's attorney. It's important because you have many folks who haven't been involved in that process, that they understand the different items that we all need to be mindful of when we're on the committee. Winter programming on the recreation side is fully underway, including youth basketball and ski club. They're all well subscribed, and Active Living will host their monthly luncheon from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on January 27th. In the clerk's office, if you have a dog, please register it. It's that time of year. Annual dog license renewals are due. Renewals can be completed online until the end of this month or in person at Town Hall. If you wait until the end of this month, it gets prohibitively more expensive. So if you could, please, by January 31st. I'm grateful for Whitney and our website because it reminded me I have to register my own dog. So thank you for that. You do need a current rabies vaccination certificate to be loaded with that, either in person or you'll have to download it to submit it online. January 22nd will be Library Director Thomas Bennett's last day with the town after 26 plus years with the library. There'll be a celebration for Thomas on that day from 1 to 3 p.m. at the library, and all are welcome. So if you'd like to come by and thank Thomas for his time and wish him well, that would be a great time to do it. And then the one item I have left is that please note that town operations will be closed this coming Monday, January 20th, in observance of Martin Luther King Day. And respectfully submitted, Madam Chair, that's what I have this evening.
Thank you very much. Glad you wrote it all down. 'Cause-
Madam Chair, can I, quick
Yes,
question?
please.
Matt, what is this new solar, or the solar ordinance, is that one of the ones that's going to go to the planning board?
I think it still has a little bit more work at the ordinance committee. So if
Okay.
I could, I'd like to
Hold on
schedule, if I could get the 3 ordinance committee members together after tonight, I'd like to see if we can get that scheduled. We have fireworks and fireworks wrap up, solar conversation to wrap up that, or at least move that a little bit further on. And Bill Longley has a couple other items as well that he'd like to bring forward.
Thank you.
But yeah, if
Thank
we
you,
can
Madam Chair.
schedule it, line calendars up tonight. Thanks, Mike.
Great. Perfect. Okay. Moving on to public discussion. Public discussion is for comments on items that are not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Rebuttal comments can be limited to 2 minutes. Public discussion topics may be brought up again under new business for further council discussion. Is there anyone here who would like to say anything during public discussion? Yep, come on up. And if you wouldn't mind just letting us know your name and where you live, please.
Oh, you guys know that.
I know we do, but
That's okay. So Melissa Gatine, I live at 325 Main Street. And I've actually got a couple things, one which you might say is related to a later item, and if so, I can stick around. So first off, I just want to say thank you to the folks who were involved in the conversation last week about Main Street and the widening potentially. I just felt like it was a really good meeting. I think people felt very listened to, so I really want to particularly thank you, Matt, for that. And again, I don't know if I can't remember who all was there, but again, I think that the neighborhood felt very heard in that process, and so thank you for that. The second thing is the one you might want me to talk about. So it's about the Comprehensive Planning Committee, but it's not specific to the people who are being nominated. Yep. Okay, so I admit I dropped the ball. I wasn't here last meeting. What were you guys doing meeting on the 23rd?
Busy, Melissa.
I was on a plane to Los Angeles. So I caught myself up, and I honestly was surprised and disappointed that there was not somebody who lives in the town center district appointed to the Comprehensive Planning Committee. And I know that there were people from the Cumberland Center area, but I think that it might be time as a town for us to rethink those designations that we have of what parts of town people live in. And, again, I've been here a long time, not as long as some of you, but the kind of traditional four-side center west designations that we tend to stick to as a town at this point, I'm not sure are really going to meet the needs, because I think that the experience of somebody living in the town center district versus somebody who's living on Lawn Avenue is very different. And so I would encourage you to rethink that in the future, and I don't know if it is too late to reconsider who's assigned and if there should be somebody assigned from the town center district to the Comprehensive Planning Committee. I know at least one person applied and was not selected. Again, I have no idea or insight into that process, but I just would like you guys to reconsider that. Okay. And then my third thing, oh, nobody started my timer.
No, I have a dead battery. I had to go manual.
Dangerous to do with me.
Sorry, I had to go manual, Melissa. Sorry.
Just really quickly, is there a plan to, or I guess I would encourage you to have a plan to follow up on, have the safety improvements on Main Street done what we wanted them to do? And so is there any kind of like post implementation of all of those changes to actually see, like, again, I wasn't active in the whole process to begin with, but what were the targets of what we want to improve, and have we actually improved those things? One particular item that just is something I see on a regular basis is there are some new drainage issues on Main Street at some of the crosswalks where there's puddling and therefore icing in places that there was not before. And so that's just one example, and I know that that's just me looking outside my window compared to, and again, I don't know what else other people have experienced. So that's it.
Thank you, Melissa.
All right.
Is there anyone else that would like to comment as part of public discussion? Please come on up.
Yes, hello. My name is Greg Smith. I live on Main Street. Been a Cumberland resident for about 35 years. Mike and his family are gone. I would also like to offer support. I've had two boys play for Greeley and for Mike, and most recently my son Aiden was a co-captain in 2019. He's a great coach, great guy. I'm following up on the last woman who spoke. My wife went to the afternoon session in front of the school board last Wednesday. I wasn't able to. I don't know why they do that. I work. I can't be at an afternoon meeting. A couple of questions in that regard. One of the comments made by the person who was leading the discussion was that they would wait to hear from the state DOT about whether, what the plan was going forward. Now, my understanding of the law is there has to be an application made. The state doesn't look all around and suggest projects, out of the blue. So is there any plan for the school district or for the town to propose something to the DOT to have a plan developed?
So Greg, it's not our practice typically to come back to you with the answers because we might not have all of the answers. So some of these things we will follow up with you on either after the meeting or I'd be happy to send you an email with those kind of answers, or we can talk about it again during new business. Personally, I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know the answers to your questions.
It should be fairly simple. And the comment was made that when asked what the next step was, my understanding by the gentleman making the presentation, who wasn't on the school board or a representative of the town, was we'll wait to hear back from the state DOT. I don't believe that's how the process works. There has to be a step taken in that direction by the town or by the school. Is anyone aware that that step has been taken? I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, yeah,
It has been?
I do.
Oh,
If you'd like me to, Madam Chair?
Sure. Go for it.
They have, they started out with an expedited review, talking with Randy Dunton, who was the engineer from Grohl Palmer, who's working on behalf of the school. They have.
Is he the one who, Randy Dunn, is this the gentleman who made the presentation?
He, yeah, he was, let's see. It was him and both Pat Carroll. So Pat Carroll's kind of like the principal.
Okay.
And they're like the design team. And
Right.
then Randy Dunton's the engineer, the traffic engineer from Grohl and Palmer, who's kind of this, to summarize it, like the subcontractor for doing the engineering side of it, on the traffic side of it. So,
The contractors are pushing the application.
well, yeah, they have spoken with the DOT, and what they originally had said was they were trying to put an expedited, basically like a shorter process application to them, which the DOT asked them for different comments and everything, and then they came back and said, well, this doesn't qualify for it, so they kind of went through the first, it sounds like they went through the first couple of hoops initially and found that, which I think Randy didn't think it was qualified for that process anyhow, but they still did it. And he came back and said, no, you need to go with this longer process. So part of the application that they have on this longer process that they're entering now would include the town providing what the town's preferences are relating to this project and traffic, the traffic movements that they're considering. So it was one of my takeaways from that is that, you know, we need, as the town, to provide our input and say, you know, we think that, you know, and it was unanimous among the residents who attended last week to make no changes, not to widen and to keep things at existing conditions, and that would be the town's preference. Especially in consideration of the fact that we just spent a fairly small fortune making all those Main Street improvements over the past year.
Right.
And-
Which
and-
are,
And, you know.
very well done and very much appreciated.
Sure, and then, thanks, and then looking at, you know, pedestrian safety and, you know, widening and making a longer run for people to at the crossings. Seems like that's contrary to pedestrian safety and improvements, as well as, you know, increasing speed and maintaining the integrity of the town center. So that's going to be kind of the arguments that we're looking to put forward in a letter, and then I'll get that to Randy probably by close of business tomorrow.
Okay.
Been working on that, and so they'll send that forward with their package to the DOT and just say, and what the town says and what the school's position is should weigh heavily in impacting their decision.
So another question, looking for my time.
So I
Thank
get about
goodness your
6
battery's still dead.
About 6 seconds. I just took about a minute and a half of your time.
So
now.
who starts the process itself, though? Who initiates this? Is it the people who have a vested interest in having the construction done, or is it the school department?
It's the school.
School department.
Yeah, it's the school project.
Okay, because I vehemently object to it, but it sounds like maybe right now that's not necessary. But I think it's an unnecessary plan, an unnecessary expenditure, and as someone who walks that every morning before light, I can tell you it would be really dangerous if you took away that bike path or sidestep, and just for 20 minutes of racing down Main Street in the morning. But thank you very much.
Madam Chair, if it's helpful at all, that's the attack we're taking.
Okay.
As well from the town side, saying, you know, we like status quo. We think it's going to work fine, just as it is.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to comment as part of public discussion? All right, we will close public discussion and move on to legislation and policy. With legislation and policy, there's an opportunity for public comment per Article 2, Section 7 of the Town Charter. There will be an opportunity for public comment on each item on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. 25-001 to swear in Ron Kopp Jr. as town councilor. What a beautiful day it is, Ron, to have you back. Cannot say enough wonderful things. And if you'll humor me for 15 seconds, when I first sat on the council, I sat next to you, and you were just one of the most supportive, inclusive, and wonderful human beings. So it's really just a pleasure and a treat to have you back, even if it's for a short amount of time. So
Thank you.
welcome back.
Thank you.
I think oh yeah, get in there, Mike.
Ronnie, I just want to say thanks for stepping up. I really, we appreciate it. We know it takes more of your time. You already had 18 years of it. But going into budget season, especially with some new counselors, we needed experience, and you certainly had 18 budgets seasons, and it's just typical of you and your family stepping up for the community. Very much appreciated, Ron.
Thank you.
You want to say something?
He's already said enough.
Okay, if Jen would be willing to come on up, we've got our town clerk here to do her amazing duties.
My rehearsed spiel. I think I know it by heart by now. You ready? That's horrible, huh? Let's move over. This is better. Better for you. It doesn't matter to me. All right, are you ready? Do you, Ron Kopp Jr., swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, so long as you shall continue a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully discharge, to the best of your abilities, the duties incumbent on you as a member of the Cumberland Town Council for a 6-month term, according to the Constitution and laws of the state? I will. Welcome back.
Thank you.
If we had confetti, we would throw it, but we don't.
I think she almost said 6 years. I thought about it.
Thank you, Jen. All right. Next up, 25-002 to appoint 2 members to the Comprehensive Plan Committee to represent Cumberland Foreside. Mike, may I punt back over to you briefly as the chair of the nominating committee, just to give us a quick little update?
So just summarize, as we put out applications or asked for applications to the comp plan. We got a number of them, especially from the center and from the west. We only had one in the Foreside. We had one that came in late. Councilor Magoon reached out to me with a very valid argument or discussion about, us extending it to make sure that we had enough councilors from each section of town. 100% legitimate topic on that discussion, and anyway, so we extended it, and we tonight have 2 more applications put forward, Madam Chair, for the council to consider.
Super.
And everybody was given these applications, everybody on the council, for at least the last week or so, had a chance to look at it. So we're excited. There's 2 good people from town, and I think they're going to do a great job.
Excellent. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this agenda item? Okay, I will close public discussion and move on to council discussion. Mr. Vail?
Should we have a motion in hand for the discussion? We have 2 nominations. Let's find out who they are, or let's make the motion, and then we'll have some discussion.
Sure.
Mike,
What was it?
will make the motion?
Yes. Thank you. Madam Chair, I move to appoint Caitlin Byers and Nancy McBrady to the Comprehensive Plan Committee to represent Cumberland Foreside.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I think they're both very well qualified to join the comp plan.
Excellent.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon, for pushing to delay this so we could get some more applications. It was a good call out.
All right, if there's no more discussion, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. Okay. All right, moving right along, 25-003, to appoint two town council liaisons to the Comprehensive Plan Committee. Okay, so teeing up this bad boy, as per kind of our initial framework for the comp plan kind of makeup, also called for two counselors to sit on the comprehensive plan. I understand, Mr. Magoon, you're going to recuse yourself from this because your wife is on the comprehensive plan committee. Totally understand. Yeah, is there anyone before we go into council discussion, anyone from the public that wants to comment on this agenda item? No, okay. Any council discussion on this?
A little bit.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Matt, maybe you or Steve know, Bob and I are up for re-election. Ronnie's not staying, although he may run again, right?
We'll
Are
see.
Bob and I prohibited from being on this plan where we're up for re-election? We're not. Thanks, Steve.
And Councilor Eads, to your question as well, I think there was even language in there that said if a person did step off or was not either on the council anymore or off the planning board, they would continue in that position until the comp plan is concluded.
Great. That's, okay. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome, sir.
Thanks, Steve.
So what's everyone thinking?
Any volunteers?
I think I think I have talked to everyone about this, and I'm sure I didn't talk to you, Mike. I think the other one didn't talk to you about. Do you have any interest in being on the comp plan?
I do not.
Okay, so that leaves the chair and myself. I have repeatedly said that I did not want to be involved with this comp plans because I've been on 3 of them. However, I have agreed to serve on this in a backseat capacity, perhaps. I will attend every meeting and I will vote as necessary, but I'm hoping to sit there and say nothing. So, and I think Ms. Filson is eager to go. So if you're looking for a motion, I would move that Councilor Vail and Filson be the council liaisons to the comp plan committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I will also just note that Councilor Douglas, who is not here tonight, is also's got a lot on her plate. I think Councilor Thorson has a lot on her plate. Just so folks know that we have been kind of talking about this. I also have a lot on my plate, but I'm a really big nerd, and I feel like I'm going to learn a lot from this process. So I'm really excited. Although I'm hoping that Bob will be in the driver's seat, not necessarily the back seat on this. But unless anyone has any.
I just want to say thanks, Tig. It doesn't go unnoticed that you have a plate full. You really, I mean, you've got young kids, you've got this job, you actually have a real job. It doesn't go unnoticed that you donate your time. Thank you. And thank you, Bob. I mean, you're still working full-time plus and everything, so it's very much appreciated.
My wife actually encouraged me to.
It's okay, my children encourage me too, because their babysitter is more fun than I am. So. Thank you, Mike, for the kind words. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll call for a vote unless there's any other discussion. Okay, All those in favor? Okay, unanimous, Brenda. All right, Bob, here's to another 18 months together. All right. Okay, next up we have 25-004 to hold a public hearing to consider and act on the adoption of Chapter 20 installations of artificial turf to the Cumberland Code of Ordinances. On this, I will punt over to our Chair of the Ordinance Committee, Mr. Vale, and Councilor Thorson, who both have put in a lot of incredible time, energy, and work into this. So Bob, do you want to?
I will introduce it, and then I'm going to pass it over to Denise and perhaps the town manager for input on that. Anybody who has any awareness of the public papers, news articles, knows that artificial turf is a controversial subject in a lot of communities, South Portland, Bangor, all over. And I think that we recognize that there is an inherent danger with unregulated chemicals and products that don't necessarily grow in our backyard. Something that's petrochemicals. So it was an interesting review of ordinances and from other communities, and we had a little demonstration from Denise about what the infill looks like. Pretty amazing that somebody just poured this on the ground, and you kick up clouds of dust. And so coming out of that is what I believe is an ordinance that speaks to the concerns. I think the Climate Action Plan, our Conservation Committee, our stated goals as a community about protecting an environment. This is a way of protecting that with the ability to not legislate something out of existence, but to make sure that we are using best practices. So I think that as deep as I want to get, and I think I'll let Denise take it from there.
Alrighty. I went over this in detail, extreme detail, at a previous meeting, so I won't go too into that now. But just wanted to thank everybody for hearing me out, letting me present this idea to you, and also to the hours spent talking with Jesse Lamar Vincent, who was the chair of the Turf Committee on the school board. We talked a lot about this, and also members of the public who had concerns, just considering basically doing the best good with as little regulation as possible. And I think this is a good balance of banning synthetic infill, but allowing organic infill or no infill options. You're mitigating or eliminating really over 90% of the microplastic pollution and chemicals that go along with that, that harm human and environmental health. And we're a coastal community. Everything flows downstream. Casco Bay is also in danger from a variety of fronts. Our groundwater is precious. So it's just a piece of the larger pie of what Cumberland has committed to environmentally. We have a lot of environmental policy, and this is just a piece of that. And yeah, I mean, there's more work to be done. I'm sure we'll look at other areas where we could improve this kind of stuff as well. Doing the most good while being the least restrictive. I think that would be the goal. But I'm glad we were able to arrive at an ordinance that addresses the most egregious aspects while still allowing use of artificial turf systems rather than banning them across the board, as has been done in a lot of communities around the U.S., but just doing it more responsibly. That's about it. Thank you.
So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this, or during this public hearing, rather? Okay, I will close the public hearing. Any council discussion on this? Ron, please.
I have a couple of questions for the manager. and I realize if this is adopted tonight that it becomes the law of the land, does this become retroactive on anything that might exist today? And what brings me to mind is the track down behind the school now. I don't know what that's made out of. I assume it's a rubber material. The tennis courts behind Valhalla. I just don't want to be accused of doing what I say, not what I do. I mean, so that's what I'm asking.
Thank you, Councilor Kopp, and good question. It does, anything, like, I know of one other turf installation in town on a private residence, so that would be a grandfathered use,
Okay.
so to speak. It probably is a transient use, because once the kids grow up and there's not much of a use for it anymore, it would generally get removed. So if there's a new installation somewhere else, they'd have to comply with that. But as far as the track or the tennis court surfaces or anything, it's a separate entity, because it's different surface. This is specific to the artificial turf that we have in there.
And I have one thing I want to read off my phone. I Googled this today, just being curious on PFAS, and it's really amazing what products that we use every day have PFAS. For instance, clothing and carpets that are stain and water resistant, non-stick cookware, food packaging, adhesives, firefighting foam, because we all have heard about that. If you go down through the list, it's just amazing what this product is in. So I think you guys have done your due diligence, and I think you've done some good work, so,
It's all Denise.
all right.
I mean,
Westport, Connecticut pretty much is this ordinance, and they did it like years ago, so I gotta take that credit. But, it also is in line with the way everything's moving. Like, we talked about the EU banning infill across the board in all of the EU and all their soccer pitches. And Maine, what is it? The PFAS rules coming out, like, what is it, like 2027 or 2029, that, things have to be PFAS free. So it's going that direction. So why wait? That's my question. So, yeah.
Yeah, Andrew, go ahead.
So I just had a quick question. Matt, maybe you're the one to answer this. The version in the packet that we received had the sentence, the code enforcement officer may require that a copy of the manufacturer's specifications. And then there was some discussion about, that version versus removing the may require, and so just you have to have the specifications. Which version are we actually voting on tonight? Because if we change it, that has to go back to the planning board, right?
It's a de minimis change. You're okay acting on it tonight, Councilor Magoon, because it's not, if you were really doing a paradigm shift on requiring that, it's already there. It's just making sure that it has to be, the specifications need to be provided now. So it's not as significant enough a change that you would have to kick it back to the planning board for recommendations and review. So at this point, you're okay acting as with the revised item that Councilor Thorson provided.
So we just need to clarify before we vote which version we're
Yes,
voting
sir.
on. Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I think Mike and
Go
then
ahead, Bob.
And I was going to bring that up, and I was going, as part of the motions, I was going to use the revision that Denise had put forward. So to answer that question, I think that's the direction we should go. That the product specifications will be presented with the application.
Thanks, Bob.
Just brief, Denise, I want to thank you for all your hard work. When you first called me about it, I'll admit I probably had an eye roll or two. But the more I listened to you and the more I learned, your arguments were very sound-based. This is a good thing for everybody. And it's good for the environment, it's good for the citizens. Just, like I said, you won me over, but very rapidly, because it's a good thing to do. So thank you for all your hard work.
And not to like toot our own horn or whatever, but this would be the first of this happening in Maine. It's happened all over the U.S., but we'd be the first town in Maine to do this officially, and I'm hoping not the last, because it's really something very simple to do that can minimize this. So there's that.
Trailblazing. Yep. Is there a motion on the table?
Denise, would you like to make the motion?
Sure.
I move to adopt Chapter 20, installations of artificial turf, to the Cumberland Code of Ordinances, the revised version.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. Congratulations, Denise.
Congratulations to
And
the environment.
Yes, congratulations to the environment.
people.
but Great work. Okay, perfect. 24-005, to refer to the Recreation Committee the task of crafting a long-range plan for the Twin Brook Recreation area. Okay, just to give a little bit of context to this, the Twin Brook Recreation Area, as we all know and love, kind of falls under different areas of oversight. We have the LCC, who does an incredible job with the trails, with the invasive management plans of that property, putting off parcels so that the bobolinks are able to come and nest. We also have the the Recreation Committee, who has oversight over all of the recreational activities that are happening there. There's a new playground that we put money aside for from a budgetary perspective. So earlier in the year, our amazing town manager thought it might be prudent for us to kind of bring all of those different stakeholders and elements together and really think thoughtfully about what we kind of want to do with that particular property, and kind of make almost like not a comprehensive plan, but kind of a mini plan for how Twin Brook is kind of leveraged using forward or moving forward with all of these different groups and for all of these different awesome usages. So that is what we are looking at this evening. Matt, was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, a lot of this, I guess, coming back when my first month or so on the job, and a couple different conversations I had I had a good conversation with Mike Schwent from LCC and talking with Peter Bingham from our Parks and Recreation Department, and looking at some of the challenges that they had faced relating to, and fresh off the discussion relating to the playground, and a discussion with a couple different abutters as well, raising their concerns about, trying to figure out, I guess, lines of responsibility, roles and responsibility, future planning for the park, and what the needs are, what the community's needs are, and trying to get everything, at least, if not in full agreement, but in alignment. And was thinking about that in prior experience in my former life in Cape Elizabeth and Fort Williams Park, which is a 96-acre parcel that, visited by about 1 million people annually. And knowing that there wasn't like a fully drawn out master plan or long range plan for the parcel. And it's really, I think you put it, it's almost like a mini comprehensive plan for that parcel, because you do have, it's a microcosm of so many different things that are going on in town, from the LCC side, as you say, invasive management, the trail network, the conservation lands, which are all fall under their auspices. And then you have the recreation side of it, where there's thousands of people who are there over the course of a year, either, state cross-country meet, regional cross-country meet, the thousands of kids who play soccer there throughout the fall, lacrosse in the spring, all the different sports throughout the year, cross-country skiers, general nature lovers, folks walking their dogs, people who might have interactions with dogs that aren't so pleasant, going through the full universe of that. And then compounded above and beyond that, the school, which is a significant stakeholder as well on the Greeley Road side of the parcel, with their athletic fields that they have over there. But now that conversation may evolve with the installation of turf at at the school campus, and what are the plans there for the areas that previously were used for practice fields for football or other uses that they had. So looking at all of that and saying, okay, how can this plan go forward? And that's why I brought this evening to do that. I know there was some conversation about, I guess trying to look at roles and responsibilities of different committees. I think what I'm trying to do with this doc is to navigate that balance between the needs that are there, but looking to charge the Recreation, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to go forward with this, but rely and basically take the conservation side, the invasive management side, the trail side of the equation, and rely heavily, if not solely, on the LCC for their work and advice going forward, to say, okay, this is what you need to consider, because they don't want to be in that business, as well as and so I think that's kind of the design here, is to say, okay, you should probably hire a consultant to help you through the process, and there's funds, I think, available to do that, and then reach out to stakeholders, abutters, the different sports teams, the different, let's say, for lack of a better description, affinity groups that love and enjoy the park, as well as looking at that and saying, okay, what's the long term? What are we looking at? Is it going to be, is there going to be water run there? Where is it going to be? Is it going to be a playground? What's the proper place to put that? You have parking lots. Is it going to be, what's the long-term plan for that? Is it going to be paving? Is it going to be stormwater management? How are you going to provide for those? There is some engineering work that's already been done by CV and Mahar related to the parcel, but it's the uses that you may find in the future that are cause for conflict. So anything that ultimately comes from this would come back to the council for blessing. It's to undertake that work and work with all those different stakeholder groups and get that input, and then say, okay, we've come to agreement, or at least maybe détente in some areas, and this is where we think that the park needs to go for the next 10 years, and have this as and it's a live document, because decisions made today or within the next year, 5-10 years from now, or probably 10 years from now, they could change completely. 10 years ago, who heard of pickleball? And towns that have put in, spent a lot of money putting in tennis courts for forever and a day are converting those over to pickleball courts now. So things can change. And so, but it's good to have a live document there that says, okay, this is kind of where we are as a unified body going forward, saying this is where we see the vision for this park going over the next 10 years. And maybe from there, hopefully this will be a good tool and an example of other ways that we can do that in the future in other areas that they have. But that's kind of the design as to why I brought this forward for the council to act on.
Can I do public first and then? Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this before we hit council discussion? Come on up.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Dave Cowan. I live at 102 Tuttle Road. Been a resident here for about 35 years. When I saw the memo with Matt's suggestion, proposal to do this, I was delighted. I serve on the Lands and Conservation Commission, going into my third year now with the LCC, and a regular topic of conversation is, gee, shouldn't we have management plans, like established management plans for each of these big conservation parcels, and including Twin Brook? Twin Brook is a little different because it's under town ownership, but not necessarily under conservation. I'm not sure that it is, at least. While we were very happy to hear the news, we also feel that we'd very much like to have maybe an equal say with the Recreation Department, because, on an acreage basis and on an investment, maybe not an investment basis, but at least on an acreage basis, on that parcel, on that management unit, conservation is at least, pretty close in acreage to the recreation use, right? And there's quite a lot going on there, and I heard you all mention, a number of you mention, the different things going on for conservation there. So it's very much an active topic there, and we'd like to see it have some primacy, maybe not just be a stakeholder, but a co-author, co-manager of the plan. My comment.
Thanks, Dave. Is there anyone else that would like to comment on this? Yep, please come on up.
Hi, Ann Maximovich. I live on Tuttle Road in abut Twin Brook. And I'm here because I think that this is a wonderful idea for the town to look at. I am so grateful that Twin Brook is in my backyard. I can cross-country ski right over there from my house. It's lovely. That being said, my kids were terrified of dogs for so many years because of the really negative, scary experiences we had by people with off-leash dogs who don't have them under voice control. We had a dog run all the way through our yard. It got hit by a car on Tuttle Road. The owner told me that they wouldn't be able to afford the vet bills and would have to euthanize the dog. We've caught other dogs running through, stopping them before they get down the street and return them to people. And unfortunately, we've also lost 2 chickens on 2 separate dog attacks. One, the owner didn't even know that their dog was gone and that this happened. And I interrupted it, and it was extremely traumatic. And I hate that I have to worry about that because it's such a beautiful place. And it's not just about me, it's about the community. It makes it where it's not an accessible space for everyone because they don't feel comfortable. Even dog owners tell me, I won't go there because my dog was attacked. And I just hope that that's something that can be looked at, especially if a playground's going to be put in, because you're going to have kids and you're going to have dogs and bad things are going to happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment on this particular agenda item?
Hi,
Hi.
my name's Annie Whitty. I too abut Twin Brooks. And I too felt like David very strongly this was a great idea, and you really pinpointed so many parts of the elements very important to Twin Brooks. And a lot of this got stirred up in the beginning with last spring when there was a whole conversation about the playground. And so it is a crown jewel of the town and needs a lot of attention and needs a really good management plan. And I really feel like about more than 122 acres of that is under conservation. So that really is the responsibility of the people who have that. LCC has trails, forestry, invasives. I mean, there's a lot of skilled people in that department and area, whereas rec is, to me, feels more like a management plan of what happens there for events. But that's sort of where I'm at with it, but I think it's a really good first step.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment? Sure.
Good evening, councilors. I'm Steve Moriarty from Oak Street. Some years ago, Annie and I were on a Twin Brook Advisory Committee. There have been a number of them, actually. And I think that what we focused on was the construction of the barn-like structure there. There has been within the past decade, to my memory, a specific dog use-related committee who reported to the council and came up with a policy. I don't know that it's an ordinance as such. You already have state law that requires the dogs be under actual or voice command, so an ordinance may not have been required, but there have been multiple committees along the way since 96, 97, and it's probably a good idea to come up with something more comprehensive at this stage. It's been rather ad hoc over 25 or 30 years.
Thank you, sir.
Mike Schwint, I live over in Friar Lane. My only question is, first of all, I have no problem with what I've heard so far about the management plan and a comprehensive plan. Makes a lot of sense. We need to get there, not only for here, but for all the other places as well. And it's a work in progress. We're working on it. My question is, the statement in there that says the desire would be to assign this task to the Parks and Recreation Committee. I haven't the foggiest idea who this group may be. When I look at the ordinances, I see a Recreation Advisory Board, which was created in 2022, which has very similar language to what is there for the Lands and Conservation Commission. But this is an unknown entity to me. I have no idea who they may be. Thank you.
It is the one and the same, just to clarify, the committee, the Parks and Recs Committee, which I think is overseen by Mr. Bingham, is that correct?
He's the staff support
staff
for the committee.
Support,
for the-
yep, but it's the same group, just might be a little bit of a language differentiator there. Okay, thank you, Mike.
Madam
Did you
Chair,
have, yeah, please.
You can chalk that up to new manager. I can. I would
We
be
throw
happy
you
to
under
make
the
that.
bus enough, we're not gonna
I'm
do it
happy to
again.
make that correction. And, Mike and I talked about it Friday, so I'm happy to make that correction. It's just after it was posted, I realized I should have had that done right.
No harm, no foul. What's the council discussion on this? No, Mr. Vale, you had an initial thought? Not to put you on the spot. Anyone else?
So I think I'm in favor of the rec committee running the show on this one here. I think, knowing a little bit of the history, this piece of land is unencumbered, and we bought it that way. And so that the use of this piece of property can and may and will change over the years. And one of the things that we identified, that the property could be turned back to agriculture if such a necessity arose in the community where we had to raise our own crops. And we identified all the parcels in the town that for that use, and part out of that came conservation subdivisions, so that we retain important pieces of land that of agricultural value. That being said, the town or the public, we could build a school on that. We could build a municipal building. We could. There is no limitations to what we can and cannot do with it. So I think it's important to people to know that. But I think that drawing up a 10-year plan is a prudent thing to do. And I think, as the town manager mentioned, C.V. Mahai did some work down there. There are some permits that have been applied for and pulled that have a time limitation to them. And I think we need to understand that, so that if there is going to be a playground built down there, that the ball has been, the area has been identified where it's going to go. Some of the preliminary engineering studies have been done, and so I think that we don't want that to go by the wayside. That needs to be part of that plan, and recognize that there's a time constraint there. Excuse me. So I'm in favor of the committee getting together and doing this work. I think it's important to do, and there's a lot of different concerns about how this property is used, and some of the things may change. And in particular, we've heard people complain about dogs on that, and so that may be a change, and it may not be a change, but it's certainly going to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, Ronnie and I and Steve, remember when we had a Twin Brooks committee. I was part of that for 5 or 6 years. We did away with it, but I got to tell you, I'm exactly what you said, Bob, about I'd like to hear what Recreation want, what their ideas are going forward. Doesn't mean we're going to approve them all, but I want to hear from them what they want. And this, I mean, you were talking about, Ann was talking about dogs, and I think one of most contentious discussions we've ever had in this council is about dogs at Twin Brooks. And I remember Shirley and I, we were right on the edge of saying no more dogs because it was complaint after complaint, but we also had people from out of town, north of Brunswick, Portland, were coming up here, dog sitters, and they were bringing 10 and 12 dogs at a time. It got ridiculous, and I'm glad that, you know, we stopped that. But I think we got to keep an open mind on how we handle dogs in the future. And but I want to hear from Rec at this point, but I certainly want to hear from the Lands and Conservation before we do anything. But I think the first step is throwing it in Recreation's lap and say, come back and tell us what your ideas are going forward.
I know I've been absent for 6 months here, but I know there was a ton of work done about the playground and stuff before I stepped down from the council. And I know there was a plan in place as to what we were going to buy. I don't think that was determined, but where it was going to go and everything else. There was C.V. and Mahar, I believe, did a lot of engineering on this. And I think this is a good plan because, like the manager says, everything changes. Who knows 10 years from now what's going to take place down there? I mean, we talked a few minutes ago about people having plates full. I mean, Mike Schwent has got a platter full of what you do, Mike, and it doesn't go unnoticed. I mean, you've been dedicated to this from the start, and everything that you do is very much appreciated down there. So I just want you to know that, and I do think things are going to change. So I think this is a good plan moving forward. So.
I have one thought, unless Denise or Andy wanted to. Okay. So just as we're talking this through, the one thing that really jumps out at me is just how many different stakeholders there are, right? Because we have the LCC, we have the rec committee, we have our abutters. You know, Matt, you mentioned maybe bringing a consultant in. And I think there are also probably some things that maybe we're not thinking about, like that maybe we should also be thinking about long-term, especially around mobility concerns with the playground. I think, Ann, you mentioned that as well. I go back to, I live on Main Street, but last year or 2 years ago, we had a neighbor who had actually was in kind of a full cast from here up because he had been hit by a tree while he was on his bicycle and basically broke his back. And there was an incident at the bus stop, you know, with a dog who was on a leash and nearly toppled him over. And that would have been, like, you can't even imagine, right, how, but it just got me kind of thinking about some of the mobility concerns as well, especially with the playground. And so in my long-winded external processing of this, I'm just wondering, if we task it to rec, is there then an opportunity for them or us to recommend that they create a subcommittee so that we can bring all of these stakeholders together? Because where I fear is that we're not going to have that communication with all of these different groups, and then we're not going to have that really kind of holistic, we're not going to be doing that kind of holistic planning. But maybe you've already thought about that, Matt. I don't know if that came into your kind of purpose as you were mapping this out initially.
If I may, Madam Chair,
Please.
a couple of thoughts on that. I think ADA compliance is going to be a focus. You can't go forward with that with public space now without having that as part of the conversation. We looked at, you know, when we were in Cape, when we were looking at Fort Williams Park, for instance, looking at access to Ship's Cove, the little beach on the left-hand side as you come into the park, for ADA accessibility on that, and trying to figure out how, you know, different mats we can put down to assist someone if they wanted to go in with the special chair to go into the, you know, to gain access to the ocean. So all that would be, you know, you have to look at all of those from parts of the conversation. So that would be an element that would have to be discussed as well.
Great.
And to the thought about the conservation land and invasive management and forestry management, I talked with Pete Bingham today about it, and you know, we did, you know, we've talked about it a few times, obviously, but again, reinforcing with him today, saying, okay, I don't think the recreation side wants to be involved in that conversation. I think from that side of it, they want to push that towards LCC for advice and consent and saying, what's the direction? Here's your segment. You know, basically as that and basically put us as a plug and play. What's the best practices? Because that's by ordinance in many ways. That's the job description. So I think that's the desire is they'll focus on that side of it and kind of, in a sense, farm that to LCC. And I was trying to find a way to navigate that, but instead of trying to create a whole new committee with 3 from here and 4 from there, I felt it would be best to charge, at least to advise the council to charge the Recreation Committee with that, and then they could sub that out to LCC to say, tell us how to do this.
I share, your concerns about, and the concerns that have been mentioned tonight about making sure that we have the right people sort of, at the table and all. I'm also concerned about, too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. And I think that we, as a council, if a plan is put forward and it completely leaves out one section, it's sort of a, hey, okay, go back, So that's on us to make sure that that is happening. The conservation aspect is really being looked at. The invasive aspect, the rec aspect, all that is really being looked at. So that's something that a way that we can ensure that we're getting all the stakeholders involved, getting the information from them, and I don't think that whatever comes out is going to make everybody 100% happy, but at the very least, everybody's had a chance to put their 2 cents in and, feel heard, and then we have to make the decisions of, of weighing different options on things. But I think that we can do that. And, I'm on both the rec and the LCC, and talking with people. I don't, like, sort of to the manager's comment, rec doesn't want to deal with the forestry aspect of it. I think there's very much of a, we've got the area that we are aware of, and then we're not the experts in these other areas, so we want to get the experts involved in there and all. So I don't think there's going to be too much of a squeezing anybody out and just having a narrowly focused. I think having a fully comprehensive plan is the goal and what people are looking at, and that we can use for the next 10, 15 years.
I have a couple things. On the playground aspect, should that go forward, I think it's important to have the conversation between like accessibility and ADA compliance and actually inclusion. If you're gonna go that route to spend, what was it, $500,000 on a playground potentially, which is a different conversation. The ADA is so bare minimum, and I know there are members in the community who have used ADA compliant playgrounds before. They tend to have children with disabilities and children without separated. Inclusive playgrounds, there's a mix. It encourages kids to play together. There's sensory things and all sorts of different surfaces that like a broad spectrum of kids can play with. And so I'm hoping that is like a key component of that, should that be looked at again. And I remember, which you're talking about, this is like a mini comp plan, and that reminded me of when I was reading the comp plan before and all those surveys that were done about, do you want a playground at Twin Brook? And I had mentioned this during public comment one day that, yeah, like 60% or something of people would like it, but only like 20% wanted to pay for it through taxes. So thinking big picture about all the stuff happening and everything everyone is going to have to pay for now, just kind of piling on, really hoping that anything that's done that's creating new amenities, and if you're having an inclusive playground, expensive amenities are like heavily fundraised in the community, especially for people who are pushing to have a playground there rather than keeping it open space. I hope that they would be comfortable donating to help make that possible. And yeah, dogs, big problem. If you want to put in a dog park and let them run free, fine, but I am heavily against off-leash dogs for a variety of reasons, and I will never bring my dogs to Twin Brook because they are like scared girls who are good on a leash, but if a strange dog comes toward them, I have no idea what would happen. It'd probably be a bloodbath. So I feel for people who have experienced these kind of things with off-leash dogs. I think we really need to take a look at it, even if it makes people upset, looking at it objectively, which is difficult because it's a hot topic, but it's also like a huge liability issue. So just whether it's even worth it or not, I think it's important to take a look at that, at Twin Brook in particular. But yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, I think my just final kind of comment, I mean, is I'm comfortable moving this forward as long as there's a clear prerogative, or we make it very, very clear that we expect that stakeholder engagement, because even with the dog conversation, we know it may be an issue to abutters, but we also know that during bobolink nesting time, we don't want the dogs trampling around on the bobolinks. And so my point here is that we want to make sure that all of those threads are coming together and that we're not kind of missing anything, because I think there's just so much exchange and kind of potential and also idea sharing that could be really positive by bringing all of these different groups together. Understood, Matt, on not creating kind of yet another committee, but I would just personally like to really see that commitment to a thoughtful strategy for engagement with all of the different stakeholders, because there are just so many of them. And we love this space and we want to do well by it.
I'm wondering, is this to be done in tandem with the timeline of the comp plan? Because there's overlap there, and I'm wondering if some of this research could kind of be done, what is it? It's not killing two birds anymore. It's like feeding two birds. Let's have the positive one.
Seed.
Yeah. But kind of, sorry, hitting those surveys in a few different ways of this so there's overlap, maybe?
If I may, Madam Chair?
Please.
Yeah, from your mouth to God's ears, so to speak. I think it's a concurrent project. I don't think it'll take 18 months to get to that point. I think you're talking 6 to 10 months outset on that, more or less, especially if you have they've had some work done by Viewshed before when the committee was looking at the playground project. That might be a company that might look at that and say, we'd be happy to do consulting. There are a couple other firms that may do it. But I think you're talking 6 to 10 months from begin to print project type of thing. So, but yes, as far as availing of the different tools that the town has, flash vote and other areas for outreach, holding outreach sessions in a similar fashion that you do with the comp plan. I think that's kind of what you're looking at, because you want to get a community voice involved as best as you can.
Madam Chair, just a piece of advice. Mike and I have been on this council for long enough that when you start bringing dogs up, you'll want to open up the curtain, because you will not have enough chairs in this room with dogs and clams in this town. And I'm being brutally honest. I mean, it will bring people out like you won't believe. And I have no issues one way or the other. I just, fair warning. I mean, you'll fill this place, so.
So can we send them to the rec committee? Mr. Vail?
I think that we're ready for a motion here, but I think before we make the motion, I think if we look at what the town manager presented here, we're all talking about the same thing, and it's right here in front of us. So let me just read this for a minute or two, and then we can move on. The purpose of this memo is to outline the objectives and key components of the long-range plan update for Twin Brook. This plan aims to provide a comprehensive framework for the management and development of the park over the next decade, addressing current conditions and future needs. The desire would be to assign this task to the Parks and Recreation Committee. Twin Brook is a vital asset to Cumberland, attracting both residents and visitors. The need for a long-range plan update has arisen to ensure that the park continues to meet the community's needs while preserving its unique features. This update will involve extensive research, community engagement, and strategic planning. Key components of the long-range plan update: a baseline review, inventory of existing conditions, stakeholder engagement, vision statement, goals, policies, strategies, park governance, pedestrian flow, vehicle flow, visitor traffic counts, capacity enclosure, off-leash and on-leash considerations for dogs, infrastructure and environmental sustainability, fee structure, potential revenue development, natural resource protection, climate change vulnerability, possible construction and location of a playground facility, protection, key assets, natural landscape trail networks, implementation plan, create a strategic plan with defined goals, objectives, and public input mechanisms, incorporate recent plans and studies relevant to the long-range plan update. Conclusion, the long-range plan update is a critical step towards ensuring the Twin Brook remains a well-managed and sustainable asset for Cumberland. By systemically addressing the components outlined above, we can create a robust framework that guides future decisions and actions. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I think that it pretty much outlines what we've all been talking about, and let's give it to them, let them go. Enough belaboring of it.
We get to listen to you belabor all the time.
Oh, boy.
Madam Chair, when you're ready, I'll give you a motion.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move to refer to the Recreation Committee the task of crafting a long-range plan for the Twin Brook Recreation Area.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. Right. Thank you, everyone who came out this evening to talk about this exciting project. And thank you, Mr. Manager, for putting it together. And thank you in advance to the Recreation Committee for this amazing project. We're, joking aside, I think all really looking forward to hearing what they come up with. So, all right, that gets us on to new business. I would be really mean and start with Mr. Kopp, but we'll start with Mr. Eads on the left.
Great meeting tonight, and welcome back, Ron, at least for 6 months. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Councilor Magoon.
I just wanted to let people know that the LCC is planning, I mentioned this a few meetings ago, but planning on holding a woodland landowner open house. Right now, it is tentatively scheduled for March 12th, probably here in the council chambers. And they'll be focusing on primarily properties with 10-plus acres and opportunities for management, incentives, how to deal with invasives, and just all sorts of good information. You know, trails. There are, I think, some properties that would be great to have the connecting trails or trail maintenance through those properties that connect different aspects of town. And all sorts of good information there with different tables. That's it.
Great. Mr. Vail?
I debated whether I would raise this topic, but I think I will. We received a letter from a Falmouth resident a week or so ago, who was chastising us for a decision that we had made. And through his long tirade or whatever, he used his opportunity to say that there had an election had taken place and that so many people had voted for, a Make America Great Again. And it kind of triggered a thought process that I thought to myself, and I said, you know what, I'm going to take that challenge. I'm going to make Cumberland great. Not again, but so, I think it's important for me to take and look at opportunities for the coming year. And so somebody used a phrase that they thought was appropriate. So, I thought, well, okay, let's make Cumberland great. And this is a great community, but we always have opportunities, and we have opportunities to do things better. And so, we've got a comprehensive plan coming. There's a great people assigned to that, and great things are going to come out of that. We have an opportunity to do some affordable housing in this community, something that's desperately needed. We have opportunities to expand our trail network. We have something going over there on Medley Watson's property. It's going to be a great thing for the community. So I think that, you know, yes, we have a new political administration coming in Washington, but our focus here is in Cumberland. What this council does to move some ideas forward, to, you know, take some initiatives. This is really where the work of America happens, is right here in local politics and in local, you know, helping make this a better community.
Thank you, sir.
It's a tough speech to follow, but I have library stuff again because I love getting these library newsletters, and if you don't get them, you should sign up for them because they are packed full of amazing information. Just a reminder that the library gives out state park passes and museum passes for free, like to the Botanical Gardens, Maine Maritime Museum. You can take Bob with you. Oh, never mind. It's only one pass per person, so you'll have to pay for yourself. Sorry. Maine Wildlife Park in Gray, Portland Museum of Art, all sorts of cool stuff. And also, if you've ever wanted to go to one of the library talks but you can't make it, all the recordings are available on their website. Like, for example, the food forest design, power and aging, fuel-efficient home stuff, archaeology of Casco Bay, trash and recycling primer from EcoMaine, all sorts of cool stuff. It's on their website. So yeah, check it out. Every week I get this, and it's exciting. I like opening it. Just like the Crier, subscribe for that too. Let's see what else. Melissa left, but we had sort of talked about this a little through email regarding the geographic makeup of Cumberland and population density zones and all that, as far as delineating comp plan seats and things like that. So in the future, yeah, maybe it is something we need to look at because it's changed a lot. And I feel like I'm more of a Foreside person than a Cumberland Center person because I'm all the way at Tuttle and Middle and it's so far away. And it's like, it feels like a totally different town on that side. But I'm still technically in the center. So yeah, I don't know if that would, where that would be, if that would be a comp plan thing, if that's a charter thing, if we even need to do that. But especially when you're divvying up seats on things based on location, geographically, it might be worth looking at again. I wanted to follow up again on, I had mentioned, like, do we have any data on the Tuttle Middle and the Greeley Main intersections with like accidents and everything? Do I need to look at like the DOT website for that? Where do I find that info as far as whether those little improvements we made are actually doing anything?
Let me redouble my efforts
Okay.
on that, Councilor Thorson.
Okay, cool.
And I can get that crash data if there is available for both.
Okay.
And if I may, just for clarification, half the intersection at Greeley and Maine is in North Yarmouth.
Okay, I'll have that. Well, it's DOT anyways,
Yeah,
right?
it's all
so it'd
DOT.
be DOT.
It's all DOT.
Okay. Because that's something, and I don't know if there was like, if we revisited the four-way stop at Tuttle and Middle, if that would need to coincide with bridge repairs, or if that needs to be tied to that project or something like that. But it's scary out there. The longer I've lived here, which, you know, it's only been like 3 years or something, but it's scary. Someone I knew got in an accident there. Luckily, no one died, but it's like you can't cross that. If you're on a bike, good luck. It's like Frogger, and it's scary. So perhaps worth looking at if the increased signage hasn't really done a whole lot, but maybe it has, and that's great. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting, but our next ordinance meeting, I'd like to talk about where we can make ADUs easier for people, as long as it aligns with, like, you know, Maine law or whatever. If there's anywhere in our ordinances that we can loosen things up a little potentially to help that with Bob's talk about affordable housing. That's a big piece of it that I think we should look at. So maybe add that to the list as well as the fireworks and the solar. And I'll start researching. That's all I got. And welcome back.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Kopp.
I have a few things. On December 18th, the town of Cumberland lost a longtime resident, Richard O'Haga, lived on Blackstrap Road. I moved in there in 1959 and 1960, was a lifelong friend of mine. Had a plumbing business in this town for years and years. Had raised 3 kids in this town. Just a good guy. Passed away at 84 years old. Lived a good life. Was a true gentleman and a good friend. As the manager stated under his manager's report, Gorham Sand and Gravel is boring underneath the main turnpike to extend the water line. This will benefit everybody on Blackstrap eventually. The town of Wyndham has agreed to build a new water tower in Wyndham, which will backfeed this whole system, which is huge. The previous manager brought us up to speed on this back 6-7 months ago. It is in the future. It's been planned. It will happen, but it will take some time. So this will be huge for West Cumberland. What else did I have here? I always donated $20 while I was on the council to the 4-H food pantry. So here's my $20. I'll get that rolling again. Very good program, helps the youth and the food pantry, which it benefits the whole community. So that's all I have, Madam Chair.
What about your friend Dean? Is he going to be donating again too?
Yeah.
Awesome sauce. Thank you, everyone. All right, couple of items. So jumping off of what you mentioned, Denise, around affordable housing, we are planning on doing a workshop on the 27th of January to have kind of a deep dive into, we've been tossing around a lot of ideas. I know Bob has some ideas. I know, Mike, you mentioned you wanted to kind of look at ADUs as well. I want to look at ADUs. Denise wants to look at ADUs. I want to look at mobile homes. Like, let's kind of have a initial dialogue, understanding what's possible, and just kind of delve in and get dirty, and then we can start to explore from there if that works for everybody. So we'll plan on that for the second meeting in January. We have a joint meeting on, I think it's February 13th with the North Yarmouth Select Board and the school board. The theme of that is kind of shared services, looking for opportunities where we can be collaborating more, especially as we're all going into budget season. Are there ways that we can optimize? So that's very, very exciting. So get ready for that. We had kind of asked for some initial data to be gathered from the different town managers as well as from the SOUP's office to make sure that we're in good shape and to be able to kind of have a robust discussion around that. Speaking of shared services and Mr. Vale's favorite topic, I know a lot of folks have been having had some conversations around opportunities for collaboration with fire. I think almost everyone on the council met with some community stakeholders who were interested in kind of bringing that discussion up front. Also looking at opportunities around police, public works, just kind of the larger shared services model within our communities and neighboring communities. So that is on the radar. We are also hoping to have a workshop, kind of a part 2 workshop with fire and EMS in early February, if I'm not getting too ahead of my skis. Okay, great. So to kind of have those initial discussions around what are the needs and priorities for kind of the next budget year, and then we can start really diving into or drilling into what those opportunities are like with our other neighbors, especially as they're going into budget season as well. So more to come on all of that. The zoning question, thank you also for bringing that up, Denise. That was something not only from the note that we had gotten from a resident, as well as those that might be kind of on the not in Cumberland. I'm in Cumberland Center and I live on Main Street, right? So I really feel like it. I recognize that's very different for Denise. But it also kind of brought me back to some of the discussions that we had around the Rise Pizza with the extension of the hours and kind of the town center district. And so at that time, we had suggested that the comp plan take on looking at the hours, right, and looking at the zoning. And so as I've not served on a comprehensive plan yet either, I'm very excited about the learning opportunity. Historically, traditionally, is the zoning really dug into as part of the comp plan? Is that the most appropriate place for it? I'm just kind of looking for some best practices and kind of understanding of if that discussion is to be had, where does it start?
On a macro level, the comp plan will look at zoning, lot size, density, what's appropriate for a business district, whether there's an expansion of a business district, whether it becomes a multi-use district. Comp plans don't dive down into the minutia of how many operating hours. And so what happens out of a comp plan is the high-level look, and what comes from that is a series of ordinance changes, either directed to the council or directed directly to the planning board, i.e. lot size, stuff like that. So I think the answer to your question is no. The comp plan doesn't do that. Certainly, the council could address any of those things at any time. Contract zone is a useful tool. I know that George Turner, in his years on the council, and always thought that contract zones was a method of not doing, not making the appropriate zone change. The advantage of a contract zone is that it brings somebody into compliance that is very narrow in scope and really addresses the neighbors' concerns and the neighborhood's concerns. So I think a contract zone can be a useful tool.
Madam Chair, if it would be helpful, yeah, your comprehensive plan will end up being kind of like the foundation from which your ordinance are built from, and your ordinances need, now it kind of sounds funny, it's a chicken and egg thing, right? But your ordinances need to be consistent with your comprehensive plan, and so that kind of sets the tone for what, where you're going to go. And it may say, you may want to consider, let's say, as Councilor Vail said, lot sizes. You may want to say, consider in your ag zone or in your rural zones to have smaller lot sizes. It won't say consider going to 2 acres. That's more of the fine details that your ordinance then would provide. So say, well, it says encourage or consider, X amount or X or Y or Z use in this zone. But then you would say, okay, well, this is the use we're going to do. It needs to be consistent back to the comp plan. Right. So once they get out of alignment, then all of a sudden someone has a legitimate challenge that they could place. If they say, well, this is inconsistent with your comp plan. And so you could look at your town center and say, well, the hours of operation, that's the finer point. You say, well, we are going to encourage this, like, let's say, restaurant use is allowed in the zone. And you say, well, we allowed them to have restaurants, and that would be consistent with it, but then you look at what the other language that might be discussing the town center, and if it says, well, we want it to be quiet and, different elements there, so you want to make sure whatever changes that do come forward, and it could be hours of operation, that's more of a finer point at that point in time. But you want to have that language in that town center to say, if that's an allowed use, then you can define if you're going to do that allowed use, how long can you do it for? Sorry, Councilor Kopp.
One thing that was a hot topic back a few years ago is one side of Range Road zoning was 3 acres. The opposite side of Range Road zoning was 1 acre. People that lived on the road couldn't figure out why, but the road split to 2 zones, and that's the way it was designated. So that's what will come up. Why is one side 2 acres, 3 acres, and 1 acre? And things change, and now we're looking at affordable homes and all of that, so maybe it is the time to look at the fact that we need to change zoning.
Yeah.
But that's the type of things that you'll bring up, and I mean, it's from everything,
Because the other thing I know that we're waiting to hear is the potential approval of the roundabout, right? And so
the funding, yeah.
The funding.
That was my next question. I just got a text from my wife, accident at the intersection in front of your shop. This is the third accident
Accident
in
again
4
tonight?
weeks.
Oh, my
It's
God.
just happened now at 8:27. She just texted me.
Gotta go to work?
No, my record driver will cover it, but can you touch on where we're at? I know it's in the hands of the feds now, so.
I'd be happy to. Thanks for asking that. It's right after they passed the most recent continuing resolution, which basically was stopgap until next Monday, I think. I think we'll see things, and talking with Dale Dowdy and the DOT commissioner about this. They thought it was going to take until after the next administration came on board, and then the federal government will pass their next budget, and then it happens to be a blessing that Senator Collins is the chairman of the Appropriations Committee coming on board, and this was her submission for it, so we anticipate we'll find out fairly soon, once that FY25 budget gets approved, that's when the funding will start to flow, and then start making motion quickly. I know we've already kind of worked to get engineers lined up to do that side of the work for it, got on their dance card, because once that happens, surveyors get busy in the spring really fast. So we are lining up to get that. So obviously the iron's hot, but as soon as they approve that budget, we're going to be good to go. But yeah, I called Halsey Frank as soon as I heard about that CR. Anytime I hear anything federally,
All right.
can you give me an update, please? So we couldn't be more excited. And I share your opinion on that. I mean, we see it a lot. It's chronic. It really is sad to see, because it's so avoidable.
The last accident, why it wasn't a fatal is beyond me.
It was
I mean,
bad.
It was tragic. I mean, she pulled right out, ran into the side of a dump truck going by. Had she been 2 seconds earlier, she probably would have deceased. I mean, it just was that close. And she had a young child with her too, so.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Councilor,
Please?
Madam Chair, Councilor Thorson had a question on Tuttle and Middle. That bridge is lined up to have replacement here in the short term as well. So, and one of the elements of that is a sidewalk as well. So I did have outreach from DOT last week, and because the town has shown that its plan is to have sidewalks going down Tuttle for that, it's basically the town's participation in that project is going to be about $29,000 towards that project for pretty significant improvement. So that'll be great, because I ride my bike down there because it's on my loop down to Cousins Island, and let's just say I don't waste my time on
Right.
on that bridge when I go through there,
Right.
due to potholes, but also it's just tight. And so when you get that in place, it's going to be but we should see that improvement in the near term. It's just one of the many all the way up down that 295 corridor. They were all built at about the same time, and they're all being replaced at about the same time.
So if I could just keep thinking of the four-way stop, because that was like the thing that was on the menu that they offered. Is there any benefit to tying the two together? Like, are there cost savings?
That'll be my next question.
Yeah.
When I reach out to, I can't remember Jerry's last name, but I'll reach out to him tomorrow. And I apologize, I should have got that between
Oh, it's okay.
the end of the year and now, but I'll have that.
So with a four-way, does that come with crosswalks, or is that an extra? Is that like an add-on?
If you had it depends. It would depend on how they would, as far as a crosswalk we go, they would have to look at, I think they have a different rubrics that they use to determine if it requires a crosswalk, or if the numbers aren't enough to merit it.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Super. Last thing I had was just a big heartfelt thank you to Thomas Bennett for his years of service. I had the privilege of working with him on the Bicentennial Committee, and he just is such a treasure, and I'm so excited for him on his next adventure. And just wanted to acknowledge that.
He's done a great job.
Such a great job.
He's amazing.
Yeah. We're so lucky to have him, even though our time is ending.
Isn't there an open house for him from 1 to 3 at the library on X date that I forgot?
January 22nd.
Okay, cool. There we go. Completed that. Thought together.
It's in your inbox, Councilor Thorson.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, there you go. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor? Unanimous, Brenda. All right. Happy Monday, everybody.